And I was like, thank you so much. Like, this is probably...
Remember all the nights you used to fall, wondering why you don't fall. On the late nights I used to call you, wondering why I don't call.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Day with Nay. So this is like take 568, more so take 6 for real. So this is a let's talk. It's my first like real let's talk. That's not like a haul or anything like that. And of course, you know, featuring Nipsey Hussle himself, because where else is he gonna be other than in my lab? But not for real. So we're gonna talk today, and we're gonna talk about mental health, more specifically my mental health, what I've been diagnosed with, how I cope, medication management, stuff like that. Just like little simple stuff. I have everything on my little iPad. Y'all know I take notes in my iPad. Part of why I have done this so many times is anxiety. Like, so my fidget, you're gonna have to bear with the fidgets, bear with a little uncomfortableness, because like I said, this is the first time I've done a let's talk, and yeah, this is not a topic that I speak on a lot, and you're not helping the situation, bro. You're making it a lot more difficult. So let's just hop in, because Nipsey's not gonna help. He's gonna be everywhere. No better way to start than to let you guys know what I'm diagnosed with. I have been diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression. Most of the time, I have to deal with the severe anxiety of it all. I do get depressed. It's like here and there, up and down. Sometimes it's noticeable to me, sometimes not so much. My anxiety is always noticeable to me, to everyone, to Nipsey, which is probably why he's like, well, no, that's not really why he's in my lap. He's always in my lap. But yeah, so my anxiety is always noticeable, and it's always something I deal with. I have different coping mechanisms. I'm in therapy. I've gone to therapy like in the past. It's just been something that I've dealt with for well over 10 years. I was diagnosed with anxiety in 2008, when I was 17. Let's see. I want to say it wasn't like at the start of my senior year, but like somewhere, maybe like almost halfway through it, I would get sick like every morning, and I just had like a real difficult time like getting to school because of how sick I was. My mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor basically said that I was struggling with anxiety, more so as a basically what brought it on was that I was going off to college, and I was like super nervous about it, which I was. I was prescribed anti-anxiety medication towards the end of my senior year, so like 2009. I did take it until I got to college, and then like maybe a couple weeks into my freshman year in college, I just stopped taking it. I did adjust really well, so I was less anxious, and I think I coped pretty well. I didn't start struggling, and I'm sorry y'all, I'm fidgeting a lot, but I didn't start like really struggling with anxiety again until around 2017. So about a year into my, not necessarily my current career, because currently I am a supervisor, but a year into case management, I started struggling with anxiety again. I had like a panic attack a year, so it wasn't like an all the time thing. I was always anxious, so I would notice myself fidgeting a lot, which I still do. I pace a lot. Just like a lot of different, not necessarily tics, but a lot of different signs of anxiety I would express. Depression, like as far as depression goes, it wasn't like, it's not severe. I don't classify it as severe. I do notice when I am depressed. I say it's functional depression. My therapist does not say that. It just says, a therapist loves to just say it's depression. But what I notice is like when I'm depressed, I'm less likely to, like I'm less inclined to talk to people. I'm already not a people person. I'm a true introvert. So being depressed just makes me want to be around people even less than I already want to be around people. My space starts to get very cluttered, starts to get messy, like dishes pile up, stuff like that. And to me, it's kind of aggravating. I love for my house to be clean. I love for my house to smell good. My house does not stink when I'm depressed, but you know, it's not as clean as it could be. So that's one of the ways I like bring myself out of the depression, is just by cleaning. I don't know if I'm like explaining it very well for other people, but yeah, I definitely clean. I do have medicine. I have medication. I have 2 different medications. When I was prescribed the medication, I did discuss with my doctor like my hesitation in taking medication, which I think can be normal for some people. Like a lot of people are hesitant to take medication, but it was kind of like, well, if you have a headache, would you just not take medication for a headache? So it's not something that I have to take daily. It is as needed. And I am very good at judging if I need it or not. I have not had to take it. I can pretty much, basically what I ended up doing now is like different coping mechanisms, and I will remove myself from something if it's making me overly anxious. So, because I start to physically get sick when I'm overly anxious. Just to discuss like some of my coping mechanisms. As you know, I fidget, but that's not necessarily a coping mechanism. I will go out on walks with Nipsey and with Spike. Spike keeps me and Nipsey company a lot. He's very helpful with going out on walks. I clean, as I've said, and I like to organize things. That helps a whole bunch with anxiety. Nipsey, really? Calm down, sir. And then I'll also, like, I get on Pinterest a lot and I design. I make a lot of vision boards. So that helps a lot. And just like if I'm actively anxious, like if I'm in a public setting and I'm anxious, I love clicking sounds. Like it just soothes me for some reason. So like if I have a pen accessible, it's got to be like a clicky pen. So I'll just click a pen. I wear a lot of rings. I don't have them on right now. And I like roll a pin in between my rings because that also creates a clicking sound. I typically have longer nails, so I can click my nails if need be. Poppets. Can you stop? Like, can you sit down, please? That's one of the downsides with Nipsey, is he's very like barky. But poppets are really good. I enjoy poppets. I've heard that they're really good for anxiety. Like, they mostly recommend them for kids, but adults too. So if you have really bad anxiety and you just need something to fidget with, Poppets are really good. You can put them in your purse, put them in your pocket, because they make different size poppets. I have a lot of games on my phone, which I think is probably on the charger. But I have a lot of games on my phone, so if I'm out in public, because I do have social anxiety, it's like, that's part of my anxiety as well. If I'm in like a lounge or club and I start to get like anxious or overwhelmed, I'll just play a game on my phone. I'm sure it's probably bothersome to other people, but I've gotten to the point where it doesn't bother me that other people feel like I'm not being social. I kind of have to prioritize my emotions and my well-being over how other people may take it. Like, it's not to be offensive. It's not to say like if I'm on a date, I'm playing in my phone. Like, no. If I'm on a date, I can engage with the person. But if it's a large group of people and nobody can hear me, I can't engage with you. I can't force myself to feel comfortable. So I just play in my phone until I get distracted, and then eventually like something else. And like I said, I do take my medication as needed. So if it's a situation where I feel like none of my coping mechanisms will work, then I'll take medicine. I have not gotten to the point where my coping mechanisms do not work. So, because it's people outside, I know he's about to bark. I haven't gotten to the place where coping mechanisms don't work. So I haven't had to like force myself to take, well, not force myself, but I haven't had to take medication. Medication management is very important if you have mental health, and it's not something to be ashamed of. I was actually just watching an episode of Grownish, and the title of the episode was "It's Okay to Not Be Okay," and it's like an episode where Jazz was like really struggling because she was depressed. You know, her friends noticed, they were concerned, and she talked to Doug, and he basically made the comment of like, well, you know, if there was something else and you needed medication for it, would you just not take the medicine? And she was just saying like, you know, I just don't feel like there's something wrong with me, which there isn't. I think that's a big thing, is and it's not necessarily to say everybody, but it's very common for people to feel like, well, if you have to take medication for it, like, then you're broken or there's something wrong with you, which there isn't. Like, I don't view it as I'm broken or there's something seriously wrong with me. I'm perfectly normal. It's just something that happens. Like, I get overwhelmed or I get overly anxious, and my phone is definitely right here. I get overwhelmed or I get overly anxious, and I just, you know, I cope differently, or, you know, my brain just works a little differently from other people, and that's okay. I think it should be normalized that it's okay to take your medicine. Like, your medicine can make you feel a whole lot better if you need it. Like, of course, that doesn't mean like take it all the time if you don't need it. Like, take it as needed. If it's something that you need to take regularly, take it regularly. Like, that's perfectly fine. And just overall make sure that you're the best version of yourself you can be. I know that when I'm depressed, I'm not my absolute best version. I'm completely antisocial and I don't want to be bothered, and I'm likely to not do anything. And I don't necessarily like that feeling, so I will let myself feel it for a little bit, but then I kind of make myself get over it. Like, I make myself get up, I make myself clean, and eventually I do feel a lot better because I've made myself, you know, get up and get active. Having a pet works. While Nipsey can have his bothersome traits, I love him all the more because having a pet, I know I have to get up and walk Nipsey. I know I have to feed him. I have to like interact with him. I have to play with him. He needs attention. He loves to be rubbed on. He loves to be loved on. And when I'm like depressed or when I'm anxious, it's kind of like he makes that extra effort to interact with me to distract me from whatever I'm feeling, to like, you know, kind of bring me out of it or make my mind focus on something else. And like when I go on walks with Nipsey, of course he's in a stroller because he's a little dog and he does not like to walk for a long amount of time. Spike is a big dog. Spike, for the most part, I think he loves to walk. He doesn't really do what Nipsey would do. Like, he doesn't just sit down and pull against the leash. He walks with me. Spike is very loving for a big dog. I've never really had a big dog, so I never knew that that was a thing. But he's super loving. He's super sweet. And the same if I'm like anxious or I'm like in a mood. Spike is just as attentive as Nipsey in getting me out of it and like distracting me and like cuddling and snuggling and all that great stuff. So pups are really good for that. I've always been a dog person. My whole family we're dog people. We love our dogs like they're little babies and they love us right back. I recommend to everybody to get a dog. I have learned to acknowledge that some people are not dog people. I don't understand it fully, but I can acknowledge it. Hustle. Stop. But yeah. So that's an insight into my mental health. Also, as for coping mechanisms, I have these 2 books that I was actually gifted, and I'll get into that story in a moment. This one is the spiritual self-care for Black women, and this is emotional self-care for Black women. So in the spiritual one, it's just like a self-care planner and a weekly journal. And I don't really write in this. I write on like in a notebook or a piece of paper. I have a bunch of journals, y'all. So I write in those because I always want to have like fresh pages. And then in the case that, you know, it ever becomes a situation where I know somebody that needs it, I can make a copy without worrying about them seeing what I wrote. So yeah. Also, it's like that because they have different prompts. Like this one says, don't overthink it, just write. If you're struggling, here's a prompt to get you started. What are 5 personality traits that you're proud of? Then they have another one was like, if you're struggling, here's a prompt to get you started. What is your biggest fear in life? So it's just different prompts, and this is the spiritual self-care for Black women. I don't know where these are from. Like I said, I was gifted to them. I was gifted to them. I was gifted them. And this one is the emotional self-care for Black women. It has like a what I'm grateful for, trigger tracking, challenging my negative thoughts. It just has like different things, like different days with prompts, emotional reflections, things of that nature. So this is a really good one as well. And the story behind these, this is 2 out of 3 of the things I was gifted. I was also given like a canvas, and I believe it's actually in my car because I was gifted this at work. I had come back from a 2-week vacation back in November. And when I tell y'all, I felt like the whole world was piling on top of me when I walked into that office. Like, I literally would cry every day. I literally had a panic attack every day. So, mind you, at the beginning of this vlog, I told you, like in 2017, I would have like a panic attack a year. That's how much stress I was under. Like, just a panic attack a year. It was a panic attack every day for like 3-4 days straight. And finally it surmounted into, I had a meeting. This is coming from panic attack a day. I had a meeting. I sat down for the meeting. I thought I was gonna be okay, and you know, we were just doing the cordial part. It was a one-on-one meeting, so it was me and one other person, and the person interviewing me, and she asked me how I was, and it was like she opened the floodgates, and I flipped the freak out. Like, I had a full-blown panic attack, crying, struggling to breathe, like hyperventilating, and I couldn't stop. Like, I was actively trying to make myself calm down, and I couldn't. I had turned my camera off. She was asking me to turn my camera on because she just wanted to make sure I was okay. And bless her heart, this lady was so sweet, y'all. She was so freaking sweet. She really just kept talking to me, and she she basically talked me down, which is it's a gift that we're given in the field that we work in, where we can talk people down. But when I tell you she was heaven sent. Okay, where was I? She was heaven sent. She was just super sweet, super kind. And she just told me, she was like, you know, you need to call your therapist or the crisis line. You need to call somebody. Like, she was asking me my insurance. I told her, and she was like, yeah, call their crisis line. So I called Kaiser's crisis line. I talked to the lady. We went through the general crisis line questions, like, do I want to hurt myself, things of that nature. I told her no. I told her what was going on, and that it was just too much. And she was like, okay, well, you need to come into the hospital. We need to do your vitals and all that stuff. So I went in. I went over everything with the doctor. It was just a regular doctor. It was not my therapist. It wasn't a behavioral specialist or anything. And she was like, yeah, I can give you 2 weeks off. Now, I was like, nah. Like, that's not gonna do nothing. I already feel like it's a lot going on. I just need to figure out how to fix it. Like, I need to fix it, and then, you know, I can do what I gotta do for myself after I fix it. At the time that I was on the phone, prior to me going to the doctor's office, I was while I was on the phone with the crisis line, my team lead was knocking at my door. And I rock with her so hard. I love my team lead to pieces. Like, I love her in real life to pieces. So when I got back, I talked to her about, you know, why I didn't answer the door, and she basically reiterated to me everything I tell her I would tell her all the time, like, how you gonna take care of us if you don't take care of yourself, and things of that nature. So I had to get a new therapist because mine had retired unbeknownst to me, or just left Kaiser, one of the two. They just said she was no longer available, so I don't know. I would talk to I was talking to a behavioral specialist. Like, I guess they have kind of like a practitioner. I don't know what you call them, but she wasn't the actual therapist. But I was talking to her for a couple of weeks. Like, she would call me every week and check in, and we were going through coping mechanisms and, you know, what could help me. Like, when I tell y'all, we went from and I promise y'all I'm gonna get back to how I got these books, but yeah, it started with that situation. But we went from splashing cold water on my face, sticking my face in ice water, like a bowl of ice water. Yeah. Walking around the building, which was not helpful. I do not like going for walks while I'm at work because you can be hot and crusty and and sweaty, and I'm not with it. So it was that, just, you know, leaving for a minute, taking a break, sitting in my car, praying, which I still do regularly, and that does help a little bit. And we finally just ended with the clicking. The clicking is what we found helps me most, and playing games on my phone. We found that's what helps me most when, you know, I get overly anxious, and Pop-Its. But Pop-Its are new, so this was not always a thing we knew about, but Pop-Its have been the recent thing. I eventually got a therapist, and I told my therapist, you know, I was just gonna keep making sure that I take a lunch. Like, that was one of the conditions, because I have always, from the time I started in 2016, I have had this thing where I do not always eat lunch. In my current field, it's very common that we skip lunch because we get so busy and we get ahead of ourselves. When you're out in the field, you're driving from one place to the next, so it's real simple to just forget to eat sometimes. But my thing was taking a lunch, so I would go and sit out in my car, and on one particular day I had left, and I would leave all my work stuff. Like, I wouldn't even take my work phone. So one particular day I had left my desk, I was sitting out in my car, like, just playing on my phone, going through Instagram or something like that. And one of the guys in my unit called me. He was like, hey, security is looking for you. They said somebody had came to the office and they was looking for you. Now my first instinct was, no, I'm not about to be bothered with this on my lunch, but something told me to get up and go in the building and see, like, you know, what was going on. So I went, and the security officer was like, yeah, she said that she works here, but we've never seen her before. She said that she had talked to you. Oh, she said a name, but it wasn't a name I recognized. She said the lady's name wrong, yeah. So I looked over, and it was a lady from the phone call where I had just flipped the freak out, the patient lady. And she was just so sweet. So she had like a bag of stuff, and she was like, hey, I just wanted to come and visit you. It's been a while. I was coming to check on you. And she was like, I wanted to bring you some stuff. So I opened it, and it was like, there's a canvas, y'all. It's a canvas of a black woman, and in her hair it has all these words to describe her. It's like a bunch of positive words to describe her. And then it was these 2 books, and she was saying, I think this could really help you. And y'all, when I tell y'all, I was so thankful. We hugged, and I just reassured her that I was going to therapy and I was taking care of myself. And I started crying. And I'm sure the lady probably, like, y'all might think right now I'm a very emotional person, and I'm really not. So we were going through it, and we were just talking about, like, all the different prompts in the book. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, this is probably, okay. So I was like, thank you so much. This is probably like the nicest thing anyone has ever done for me. And she, like, until she honestly, probably to this day, she still checks on me. I don't have any of my work equipment, so I personally cannot check, but she's super sweet. She's probably the sweetest person I've met that I have not worked under directly. So super grateful to her for that. And that's how I got these books, y'all. That's the story behind these books. The tearful story, as we can see. And to be honest, the situation where I freaked out, that's probably been the scariest moment I've ever had with mental health. Like, that series of moments, like the multiple panic attacks, the thoughts, all that stuff, that's probably the scariest moment I've ever had with mental health. Like I said, the depression part, for me, it doesn't really bother me because it's functioning and I can pull myself out of it. And I just come up with different ways to, like, bring myself to be active. And also with my depression, I constantly tell myself, like, even in the moment, like, I'm not always gonna feel like this. Like, this is just a temporary moment. It's a temporary emotion in a temporary moment, and it's gonna go away, and tomorrow's gonna be better. And even if I'm depressed the next day, there's something that happens within that day that still makes it better than the day prior to. Whether it's Nipsey doing something goofy, or I talk to my mom every day, no matter what my emotion is. And it could be something that my mom said that just make me realize that, yeah, today is better than the previous day. I also have a tattoo in French. Funny story about this, I thought it was Latin. This is why, if you don't speak the language, you really should not get a tattoo. I legitimately lucked up. It's French. It means passion for life, and I got a semicolon, and it's literally a constant daily reminder to me that temporary moment, and to not make a permanent decision based off of a temporary emotion. And I feel like that's important. Either to surround yourself with people who are going to remind you of that, or make that effort to do that. I did put, like, a little poll thingy up on Instagram and Facebook for some people to comment. A lot of the comments were kind of the same, like, how can a person help you? Like, what can someone say or do to help someone? / like, how can they show up for people in moments? And honestly, it's for me, it's honestly just to show up. Like, even if you're just calling me or texting me to see how I'm doing, or to say that you're there, or like to sit and watch a movie. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Alexis. I've talked about Alexis before. I love Alexis to pieces. I have lived with Alexis on and off since 2014. Like, since we graduated from college. She has this quirky habit. I call it quirky, but it's quite adorable. She kind of can tell when I just don't want to talk, or like I just don't want to be bothered. She would come and sit in my room and just watch TV with me. It was just that simple. Like, my mom does it all the time. Like, when I'm at home, like, we'll just watch TV together. That is the most perfect thing for me in the whole world. It's like, just sit, watch TV, or just sit with the person, or go for a walk with them, or something that's calming to them, or something that they like to do. Like, just do that with them, even if it's like just eating different foods, like eating different junk food. Yeah, that. Someone said functioning depression and how to pull yourself out of slumps. I think I've covered that one pretty well, like how I pull myself out of slumps. Everybody has a different way. So if you're watching this and you deal with depression and you have a different way of pulling yourself out of a slump, please feel free to comment it below, because you never know who that could help. So yeah. Or if you have anxiety and you have different coping mechanisms, please feel free to comment that below as well, because that could definitely help someone. Y'all, I exited out of the entire thing. Gotta love it. So yeah. Someone said, remind people that it's nothing to be embarrassed by. It's nothing to be embarrassed by, and it's not. Honestly, like, that title from that episode of Grownish was everything. It's okay to not be okay. There's nothing embarrassing about mental health. Like, I know people make like a lot of jokes about it, but there's nothing wrong with it. Like, at one point, I can say that I probably, like, when I was younger, like when I was first diagnosed with anxiety, it wasn't something that I went around telling everybody, because I remember people like that I was like, kids I was in school. Kids are mean, first off. Let's start there. And like when I was younger, like if you had like anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD, OCD, especially OCD, like kids would pick at you so much, and they were mean. So it's not like I was gonna go around telling people like I had anxiety, even as a senior in high school. Like, I'm not telling nobody that. I don't really think I told anybody in college for real. So I don't think I was open about anything, honestly, until I started in the current field that I'm actually in, because it was something that we talked about a lot. Like, I got more knowledge on it. And I started to just realize, like, it's okay to have the feelings that you have. It's okay for all of it is just okay, and it's perfectly normal. I have been told, like, while talking to people, like when you're in the talking phase or relationship phase, like, you know, that my anxiety or whatever could be overwhelming. And I had to come to acknowledge that that's okay for people to feel like that. Like, I'm sure it could be overwhelming to some, but also I've, like, as I've gotten older, I've come to realize like how important it is to just have a relationship where that person can understand what's going on with, like, they're mature enough to understand what's going on with me, and they don't weaponize mental health, and they don't demonize me for having it. Not necessarily demonize me for having it, but like, they don't penalize me for it. Like, it's not something that where it's just like, well, you have this going on, kind of. Well, I guess weaponize is the correct term for that as well. But yeah, it's that title of grownish is perfect. Like, it's okay to not be okay, and I feel like we need to normalize that just as much as we need to normalize it. It's okay to take medication if you need to. Like, you're completely normal no matter what mental health issue you have. Like, that is normal. It's just how your brain is functioning. Like, it's just something that you're going through, and you're perfectly capable of living with it and functioning well with it, and you can still live a happy, healthy life. It's just something that you need to address, and that you need to, you know, continue to get assistance with. Like, I know that my life is better with therapy, and with me being able to acknowledge what's going on, and with me having coping mechanisms for it, and having certain boundaries for people so that it doesn't get aggravated to the extent that it has gotten within like the past year or so. And there's nothing wrong with that. Discuss how your inner peace is always important over professional or personal passions sometimes. That part is a little confusing to me, because if my inner peace is destroyed, then it's going against my personal passion. More so because for me, one of my passions is for me to be completely and totally happy. I want to be happy in everything I do, whether it be my professional career, love life, familial relationships, friendships. I want to be happy in all of it. So yeah, my inner peace comes from me being happy. How to not let anxiety get to you in public settings. For me, that's where my coping mechanisms come in. Like, coping skills are really big when you have anxiety. So clicking, playing games, stuff like that, that's really big for me in public settings, because like I told you guys, I have social anxiety. Well, I suffer from social anxiety. I suffer from anxiety as a whole, but I also have social anxiety. So it's very easy for, if I let it could easily get to me in a public setting, but I work really hard for it not to. One of the ways I show anxiety is I'm highly irritable. I just get mean and like angry and completely anti, and I cry. Yeah. So and ultimately the biggest way is I'll have a panic attack. So yeah, I try to work really hard to just not let that happen, especially in public. I hate crying in front of people, and I hate crying in public, and some people just would not know that because they've seen me cry, but I genuinely despise it, because, and it's probably something that I just grew up thinking, but I always felt like it was a sign of like weakness. And I have a really ugly cry face. Like, it's worse than the Kim K cry face. Like, I have a really ugly cry face, and I hate for people to see that. So there's that. And then honestly, like, my dad used to tell me all the time when I was little, you crying is gonna give you a headache, and then it's gonna make what you're trying to overcome that much more difficult. And if that's not the truest thing in the world, like, yeah, when I cry, like, I get the biggest headache, and it makes whatever task that I was already frustrated trying to deal with that much more frustrating, and then I don't want to deal with it. So yeah. Finding your peace when working a 9 to 5. That's so big. That's so big. And that's actually the last one. So yeah, finding your inner peace working a 9 to 5 is so huge, and it's so difficult, because like ultimately that's what led me down the road of like medication management, seeking more coping mechanisms, and like, or honing my coping skills, I guess you could say. And then ultimately like just learning to take breaks when needed, and acknowledging that I need to, was because I did not have peace in what I was doing, and I was doing it longer than 9 to 5. Like, to be honest, I work almost around the clock 7 days a week. It just is what it is. So it was driving my anxiety into all the way over the overdrive. Like, it's hectic. Like, when I think back on it, it's just like, oh my gosh, I function in that. It's so important to have peace when you're working. And it's honestly, it's really important to find something. Don't get me wrong, I love what I do. I love what I do. And I feel like if I didn't love what I did, I wouldn't do it. But it's so important to, and that's why I work so hard to like find different coping mechanisms as well, and coping skills, because it's so important to learn how to cope so that you can continue to do what you love to do. And you have to be able to find peace and set professional boundaries in what you do so that your mental health is carried. Like, if you already have mental health, it's just so important to be able to have that type of a setup so that you can continue doing what you need to do. But you also need to learn to acknowledge when it's not working out, like when you need to step back and reevaluate and reconfigure things so that you continue doing what you're passionate about, but still maintaining that inner peace and doing that work to find that inner peace. If it's talking to someone, talk to someone. And you know, you just have to find what works for you, and it's different for everybody. If there's any type of like suggestions that anybody has, please feel free to comment them. Like I said, you never know who it could help. And yeah, that's actually it. Like, that's my story. That's my whole story. So yeah, like I said, like, you know, always acknowledge that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not feel okay. It's okay to feel a little jittery. Just address why you feel jittery. If you have friends that deal with depression or anxiety, check in on your friends. Just check in on people. Like, they don't have to have mental health for you to check in on them. Like, I feel like that's super important. I also feel like I say like a lot. But no, for real, it's super important to just check in on your loved ones, check in on your friends, family members, everybody. Don't take a single day for granted. Live life to the fullest. And just love the life you have, no matter what you got going on. Everybody got something, whether they say it or they don't. Everybody got something going on. So it's okay. And yeah, that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And please, 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 I can't say this enough, definitely comment if you have any suggestions for coping skills or coping mechanisms, anything you do specifically to cope, any like tips or tricks you may have for dealing with anxiety in public settings. If you have depression, how you can get yourself out of the slump, like what works for you. If you're a mental health professional, anything that you want to say is more than welcome. If you have friends or loved ones that deal with mental health and there are specific things that you do to assist them, that you feel could help others in a situation similar to yours, be sure to comment that below. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Hi guys, just really quick, I just wanted to cover something super quick. This is my take on my mental health and how I feel about my own diagnoses. Mental health is not one size fits all. It looks different on everybody, and everybody reacts differently to different things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog and got something out of it. And yeah, thank you guys. Bye.